Hey guys, LC Holt here, and this is my update for November the 26th. And today we're going to talk about some more conspiracy theories. And you know what that means. That means my buddy Ryan Rayonec is here with me. So Ryan, how you doing today, buddy?
Oh, I'm hanging in there, doing well so far. I'm watching Ohio State win me money, so
Awesome.
it's a good start to the day.
How's the weather out there in Vegas?
It's actually surprisingly hot today.
Really?
Surprisingly, because it was freezing last couple nights. And
Yeah.
I walked over here because I was in the middle. I was watching the game somewhere else, and then I came over here, to do this, and I actually sweat a little bit on the way over here. I was pretty shocked.
Wow. Well, it's kind of
Yeah.
hot where I am right now. But yeah, I was going to say today's theme is going to be a big theme, and it's a theme that might take more than one show to cover because it's pretty broad. But today we're going to talk about moon-based conspiracy theories. And if you guys have done any research into this sort of subject matter, then you know this goes deep. Let's start probably what'll be our first of several shows about this sort of thing. But there's so much to do. What do you think, Ryan? Where do you want to start with this?
It's hard because it leads, like, you could take one example from like one story that you look into and then think about how that relates to other things in the world, and what could have come of that, whether it was true. It's a tough one. It's a
Yeah.
really tough one because you have to think initially. Let's just take the side of we never went to the moon, for the protagonist, whatever. At the time, like I think we talked about this before, when the first time we ever did a show. There was reasons to fake it. As much as there was reasons to go, there was also reasons. We were in a war, and getting there first meant a lot at the time. So the initial launch, there's reason to believe that, like, look, maybe we were just saying this shit for just because it benefited us greatly, and war is about deception.
Yeah, and it was a lot of this started out a lot with tensions between Soviet Russia and America, and Russia obviously got the first satellite into space, which was Sputnik, and then America was like, "Oh God, we got to get more than a satellite. We got to get people up there." And then this
Yeah, then
whole
there's people who don't believe there's satellites at all.
right, right,
Which is something I would actually love to look. That's something I haven't really, like, I can't talk because I really haven't, like, looked that deep into, like, look, do satellites go up there? But it would make some sense in the sense of, like, look, you don't have to have, direct TV can work without the satellite being in space.
hmm
You can link to that frequency without it being a space-based satellite. So, not that direct TV should be the end all be all, example. I'm just, using it as one.
right, yeah, and that would be a good example. I think people would use to say against satellites. But what do you think that there are satellites up there? Do you think Sputnik is up there?
I don't know. Here's the thing, bro. I think that this could go so deep that none of us even know what space is. None of us. I'm talking no matter how bright, no matter what your IQ, no matter what your SAT score, none of us. Because it's like it's an if bet. Okay, if we win, okay, then you can go on the side of the information we have, and you can listen to whatever you're being told. If we didn't go, then every single thing you ever heard about space wasn't true. So how do you know? How do you use a jet propulsion in a vacuum? If they say space is a vacuum, how does jet propulsion work in a vacuum? I don't know.
Well,
You know,
that's an interesting point to make because when you talk about NASA, that's something we're all raised with, and probably several generations at this point have been raised with the simple truth. If we'll use that because I believe in space and stuff. So we'll just say, for the lack
I'm
of
not saying I
argument,
don't believe. I'm not saying I don't believe either. I'm saying I don't know.
yeah.
I remember how we talked last time. I'm throwing the red flags. That's all it is. I'm throwing the penalties, and then I'm just sitting back to see, to watch the review to see what goes on.
Yeah.
I'm as a rational, intellectual person. Okay, you have to understand this can be pulled off. Now, I'm not saying again, I'm not taking either side. I'm just saying, could this be pulled off? Yes, compartmentalization works. It works on a very high level. It runs most of this earth. So if you think it can't be done, it 100% can be done.
And there are a lot
Yeah,
of videos on YouTube. All you got to do is type in
oh, there's hundreds of them.
somewhere, yeah, near space conspiracy or Apollo conspiracy or moon or whatever. And I looked through a lot of them last night, and tons of long videos that go into details of breaking down these images and videos and showing how, you know, the people walking on the moon, for instance, are their heels are off the ground, suggesting that there are wires holding them to taunt, so that their toes are touching and not their heels and stuff like that. But again, that can go either way. I mean, you can look at that. Some of it is really nitpicky. Like you have to really go,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah, okay. I see
That's the problem with talking conspiracy stuff is some people are so nitpicky and so over the top that they get in the way of like rational discussion.
Right. Yeah, and they want to only, you know, throw out every kind of fact that you could say and just go with the cherry picking.
That's why I said I'm in the gray area. You know what I mean? I'm not taking the side of we went. I'm not taking the side of we didn't win. I'm taking the side of an alien who just came here from another planet who doesn't believe a single thing you all say. You know what I mean? And is just trying to figure out what actually happened. And to me, like you said, you mentioned the strings. Now on the original videos, I've only seen like a couple where they're like, okay, this could be like, you know, some sort of harness movement. But I did see one in particular where the guy just kind of pops up like this, and it's 100% unnatural. But I've seen more of those videos, like in current NASA videos, where you'll see a guy rolling, and there's 100%. It's not even 9. This goes beyond conspiracy stuff. I'm here to tell you, it's 100% of strings holding the guy up. Nothing pulls your pants up, you know, 4 inches from your ass without any other human touching you, unless it's, you know, a harness of some kind. Especially when you're, you know, suspended in something. You know, you're off the ground. You're supposedly in space. You're not touching anyone, but something's oddly pulling you up by your pants.
Well,
you know, that kind of gets me. Why would there ever be one string involved if you're really doing this? That's my question. Is if we're really doing all this stuff, why is there ever any example of fakery, even one?
Well, speaking of modern stuff, there's something that I had never seen before that you turned me on to, and I finally found it last night. It's actually not that difficult to find if you type in George Bush Sr. visits NASA. And it's a fairly recent video. George Bush Sr. is in a wheelchair, and he's kind of being shown around the command or mission control at NASA. And you see a guy pushing him, and he's saying, "Hey, how are you, sweetheart?" He's probably, you know, looking at her ass, and he says, "Hey, how are you, sweetheart?"
George likes the ass.
Yeah. Did you hear what his favorite line is with women? He's like, "Hey, I'm David Copperfield." Like, that's funny. he was so proud that he came up with that, I'm sure. But
that's funny.
But that's kind of going off the point. The point is he's saying hi to this lady, and he says hi to this other dude that works there. And as he's being pushed past a number of screens I mean, you guys have all seen NASA Mission Control, what it looks like, multiple screens, some bigger than others. And there's like one kind of big screen. And in the background, you can see a guy who is obviously the astronaut, Tim Peake, who is relatively well known. He's a British guy, but he works with NASA, and I think he's still up there. He might have come back. I'm not sure. But you see him, and he's in front of this sort of blue backdrop with a grid on it, white grid, and he has something that looks like a green ball, and it's going around and around, and he's holding his hand up like this, and you just see this ball going around and around. And it just is a very quick shot. And what conspiracy theorists or anti-NASA sort of folks say is that what you're seeing there is a mistake that the camera wasn't supposed to catch, and that is Tim Peake against a blue screen with a green ball, I guess, for that's meant to symbolize something that will be removed, chroma keyed out with special effects, and then replaced with something else. And the background is to be replaced with something else.
Not to interrupt, I want you to finish that thought because I'm sure you had a point to it. But I just wanted to, before I forget, the reason that's so easy to be an actual mistake is because not everyone has any, you know, is just into movies. Okay. Some people don't know what a green screen is. Some people know what a blue screen, you know, it's just not their thing. So if you're filming something, it's only your job to film. You're not thinking, oh, I better not show this. You're just filming George Bush, and you're filming the surroundings without anyone really, you know, being on the defensive.
And the focus of the shot clearly is Bush in a wheelchair being pushed by these people and saying hello. I mean, that's the point of the shot. But so you kind of have to watch it twice to see, and this is in the background. You know, this is not something that's focal in the frame, but it is there, and it's interesting. A lot of people point to it. It's kind of something that I looked into a little more, and I actually found the video that's on the screen back there.
Right. I think I've actually seen it too.
Yeah, and it's Tim Peake against something that is blue, and it's gridded off, and it has little numbers on it, and he's holding a green ball by a string, and he's doing this, and then he lets go, and the ball flies and hits the wall and bounces.
Yeah, I've actually seen some of the before and after videos where they're doing what they're doing, and then you impose the special effects, and I've seen it with and without the
right.
It's just like
some of the kind of the pro NASA videos, when they do the chroma key with the blue, the white grid stays, and obviously the blue, because that's what, let me just explain. Chroma key is where you can put a green, or they used to use green all the time, and now they use blue because it's easier to color correct what's in the foreground. You can color correct that easier if the background is blue. But the thing is, you can't have anything else blue, because the blue is what's removed, and once you remove the blue, you just literally hit a button. I've done it. It's actually in the last movie I did. We did this. You just hit a key, and then the background is replaced. The blue is replaced by whatever you want to replace it with. And so that's the idea of what they're saying, that these guys are actually in a warehouse somewhere on strings, and that the backgrounds are being replaced to create an environment that looks like the ISS, the International Space Station. That is, maybe they say, not even there, not in the sky.
I've heard that one too. It's that's the thing though. When you have something that people can't verify, there is no limit to how much you can lie. If we can't go check, I mean, there's nothing you can't say. And especially when you like, so much of our thought process is about the future, involves space. I watched this video. I hate to keep bringing up videos that I don't remember like the main, focal like points of. I guess the point of this particular video would be like, I'm trying to think of it. Lost myself over here, but they were showing fuck me. I would have to think of the video. Give me 1 second. Because
while you're saying that, let me just tell the audience, since we mentioned this George Bush thing, and I had to take a minute to find it, I'll put it in the description of this YouTube video, so you can go watch it for yourself and tell us what you think about it. But I'll put it down in the description of the YouTube video. Yeah,
I'm sitting here trying to recount videos I watched a year ago, but it had a good point.
Was it about the ISS, the space station?
No, it wasn't that. It was I had it in my, I swear, when you hit that one sentence, it popped in my head, and then it popped out equally as much.
Well, I'll say something else that was kind of similar to what I was talking about, and it popped back in. I saw a couple other videos from the ISS that people point to, and some of them, they do look kind of, there's weird stuff going on in them. I mean, there's one where there's three guys in front of the camera, and as the transmission ends, just the three guys sort of digitize and do like that, and the background stays stationary. And it's like, okay, well,
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, I'll have to send you that one, because I saw that last night. I'd never seen it before either, but it's that sort of thing. There's another one where there's a guy flipping weightlessness, and he's going down a corridor in the space station, and then he turns a corner, and then as he turns the corner, he seems to sort of fade out before he goes around the corner. And I saw that one too. And all of these, by the way, are on NASA's website. I mean, it's not a conspiracy thing in terms of finding these videos. You can go on there, and they're on their website. Watch them,
That's one of the main reasons that, like, I wanted to do, talk about this, is because NASA themselves has made this 10 times worse over the past 7 to 8 years. They came out, that one scientist came out, and this is on their website. You don't have to be like, oh, you're just saying. He says specifically, we can't get through the Van Allen radiation belts. We aren't even, we're not close to sending humans there. Or he basically says we are getting closer, but we have a lot more we need to do before sending humans through this region of space, was his exact words. So, and then there's another NASA guy who says Okay, well, we did have the technology to go to the moon, but we destroyed that, and it's very hard to build back up again. Again, this is from NASA and their exact words. So my question to that would be, okay, let me just say that I believe you, which, is tough. We're giving you $53 million a day, and it's tough to build back up. $53 million a day, I'll build Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, I'll just make another one.
Yeah, and that's
God,
it's
damn.
18.4 billion annually.
It's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
To me, if at what point is it taxation without representation? If all I have to go on is these videos that you show me, and it's the benefit. Oh, and now I remember what I wanted to say earlier. The video was about the future, and it was basically the video starts like saying, okay, these are going to be the next 50 years, right? So you're thinking, okay, we're going to get into like inventions, we're going to get into like how cars are going to change, we're going to get into architecture, we're going to get into just human stuff. The entire like 15-minute video was, okay, and this year we're going to do this in space, and this year we're going to do this in space, and then by this year we're going to do this in space, and by this year we're going to do this in space. And it just continued all the way to like 2060. Mm-hmm. So when I first saw that video, and this goes back to what I told you before, before we came on the air, as much as I like conspiracy stuff, I never really questioned the moon stuff. That's why it's kind of fun for me. It's kind of new for me to talk about, kind of like the futility thing. It's it's new, didn't really know about it, so it's fun to talk about. But the only reason I even got the inclination to ever look into this was a buddy of mine, Ron. We're sitting there at 3 a.m. We got nothing to do. We can't, we got a football game at like 9 a.m. If we go to sleep, we're gonna, it's got to stay up basically. So we're talking, and he says, yeah, we haven't been above Earth's atmosphere since, 300 miles above Earth's atmosphere since 1972. And I said, what the fuck did you just say? Because as a kid who grew up in the 80s, which like God, it seems ancient now. They used to show us all kinds of rocket launches. My God, I remember seeing like 2 and 3 weeks one time.
Yeah.
Look, this rocket's going up. Okay, look at this rocket going up. As a kid, you just assume, okay, we send rockets in space. That's just part of, what smart people do. And that's, stuff we have to do to whatever, when you're a kid, you don't really question stuff like this.
And a lot of those things that were kind of scary if you think about it. In the 80s, and I remember that too, because you and I are the same age. I remember watching in classroom, on TV, that sort of thing. And it's a very that equipment that they were using in the 80s to launch all these people up into space was like the same stuff they used in the 60s. They had reused those shuttles over and over. They would just refurbish them and then reuse them and then send people back up into space,
What the thousands of hours of maintenance, per year that each plane has to go through. It's like as much maintenance per hour as it is hours in the air.
Exactly.
For just your standard commercial airliner. So you're gonna, like that's a good point I never really thought about that you just brought up, because you're gonna tell me it's we know it's not safe to fly on Earth without constantly upgrading your hardware, or at least maintaining your hardware, and yet we're gonna travel into the unknown, with stuff from 30 years ago. This whole story, I don't know, it's just red flag.
Do you remember the last time that we all got to sit down and watch a shuttle launch was right at the end of the 80s?
I was going to say, wasn't it like 88, 89?
Yeah, it was actually 86. It was 86.
Was it 80? Was I that young?
Yeah, it was 86. I remember I think in kindergarten when the Challenger exploded, and that was straight up just old equipment. The Challenger shuttle had been used many times. And it was being refurbished and reused for the upteenth time, and they sent them up, and for the first time ever in NASA's history, when people were actually heading to space, the thing exploded. So, and in front of everybody on televised.
Yeah.
Suddenly after that, you never heard about NASA televising any kind of launches on a major scale. That was it. That was it. But there was a lot of reason to that too, because there was a lot of buildup to that, because there was this lady named Christa McAuliffe who was a teacher, and I can't remember what state she was from. It was like Massachusetts or somewhere like that. And they had this whole teacher in space program where they wanted to get a teacher and send her into space, train her, and then
could it be a sociology teacher?
Yeah, train her and then send her up into space. And then from space, she would do these live broadcasts into classrooms around the country and do lesson plans from space was the idea. Of course, it never got to that part because it blew up before she got there. But that was the idea behind it, and which is hugely publicized. Everybody was watching this thing because she was the famous teacher, and everybody watched when the thing exploded.
Supposedly.
Okay, well, let's get into that, because that's another thing I was looking into.
And that's another thing too. I watched a couple of the videos, like I was talking to you before we went on the air. Nothing to where I can be like, oh no, I believe this, but again, there's just countless NFL refs at work over here, throwing flags. Why does every single thing you do have to have some sort of what the fuck to it that I'm just supposed to believe? Can you just once do something that just doesn't have any question marks behind it?
Well, let's talk about a couple of the question marks around Challenger, because this is actually a bigger conspiracy theory than I had ever known, because I didn't know about it until very recently.
Yeah, but I didn't either when I started looking at this, and then when I started looking at it a little bit, I was like, there might be something to this.
And I think it is relatively new. I think this conspiracy theory came out less than 10 years ago, and it was put forth by people who had found photographs of people with similar names, or sometimes exactly the same name, who look like the Challenger folks 30 years later and who are living now.
And teaching at universities and...
Yes, some of them are teaching, and it's like I have, I'll go through a few of them here because I've written this down. So there was a 7-man crew. We're going to talk about a few of them. There was a guy named Richard Scobie. Okay, he was on the Challenger, and they have a guy named Richard Scobie who runs an advertising agency in the Midwest. And if you put the two pictures side by side, they look similar. They're both named Richard Scobie. They have a passing resemblance to each other. Richard Scobie is a fairly unusual, obviously Richard's not, but Scobie is. There's another guy, Ronald McNair, who was a fellow who had a brother named Carl, and Carl does speeches around the country with sort of connected to NASA a little bit. And you put the two pictures side by side. The brother thing is kind of hard for me because, again, brothers have a resemblance. So, and we know that Ronald McNair had a brother named Carl at the time of the Challenger. So if you say that the guy alive now named Carl is really Ronald, then you have to ask the question, well, what happened to the original Carl?
Right.
Did Ronald kill Carl and take over his life? And he also had a gap put into the front of his teeth too. I mean, it was... The only
dangerous thing to me about getting into the Challenger conspiracy is that people who really want one of the, to be on the, for their answer to be right, like we were talking about, they're always going to lean on the Challenger being a conspiracy because that just opens up all their windows. If you believe we faked, everything from 69 to 72, then you need a scapegoat reason to stop doing this, because as technology evolves, as people evolve, as everything evolves, it's harder to fake shit. We can still do it all the time, but it's harder. There's more people looking at it. There's YouTube now. There's just but back in the day, if you want to be like, look, we just want to get paid. We're not trying to, send all this stuff into space. We're really just trying to thieve, well then, yeah, I wouldn't want to keep faking this shit either. If it is, in fact, fakery, if we're really going, then, anyone who wants to believe that is going to be on the side of the Challenger was complete bullshit. Again, though, they have every open door to go through. If it's tough. It's tough for me even because I don't know, and it's one of the it drives me nuts because I'd love to know. But to me, the thing that got me leaning more towards we've never been, as opposed to we have been, is the new stuff that like the images from Epic. Because when we were growing up, for anyone who doesn't know, for anyone who's 20 years old and younger, you know, when me and LC were growing up, we all had the same image in all our textbooks of Earth from half the distance to the moon, from 138,000 miles away. It was universal across the board. If you existed as a human being, you saw this picture, okay? And from 138,000 miles away, the Earth looks distant. Now, you can get in conspiracies about that, too, how they were covering the window to actually make it look further away, and they've been caught doing that on video. And forget all that, okay? That doesn't have to be relevant with this particular example. The whole point is, in 1969, they told us from 138,000 miles away, the Earth looks distant. Okay, at the very least, the one word I would use to describe the picture to a kid who hasn't seen it is distant. So now, fast forward to present day, right now, they have this camera called Epic, and it's the million miles away. This is from NASA. This isn't my word. It's a million miles away from NASA's words, and it's the first camera to give us the whole big reason why Epic was a big deal was the dark side of the moon, right? You know, the dark side of the moon, big thing for, you know, a lot of people for a lot of years. We finally supposedly have this camera to show us the backside, the dark side of the moon, and then, you know, the view of Earth, which comes with it. The problem with that is from a million miles away, Earth engulfs the picture. I mean, engulfs. But you want me to believe from 138,000 miles, yeah, we're getting to a point where we're not going to see it very soon.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's,
you know, that to me, you can't have both. It's impossible. One of those things has to be a lie. 100%. I don't care what anybody says. You can't have both. You just can't. You know, I can't send a dick pic to a chick of 11-inch dick and then show her a 2-inch dick and be like, yeah, those are both mine. It doesn't fucking work.
Well, that's
NASA,
true.
It doesn't fucking work.
Well, shall we show them the picture that we're talking about?
Yeah, show the which I forgot to tell you to get the original pic because so many people, you know, who are younger might not have seen it.
Oh yeah. Well, I have the pic from the Epic that's taken from the Discover satellite. That's the one that's a million miles away.
Yeah, let's see that one.
Okay.
This is one of the and like my friend got me, you know, when was said the stuff about, you know, we haven't been above Earth's atmosphere. You know, that got me initially. But this is the picture where I was just like, what the fuck?
That is the picture that was taken a million miles away from Earth, showing the dark side of the moon there, and then, you know, obviously the Earth is enormous.
From that perspective, it's impossible for any of the original NASA mission to be true. Any of it.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting picture, man. And by the way, the dark side of the moon, the reason it's not dark is because that's just a figure of speech. The reason they call it the dark side of the moon is because it's the side we supposedly never see. It does actually have light on it. So that's why you can see it there. But,
well, a lot of people, you know, say the moon is its own light source too. So who knows?
Right.
But I mean, that one picture, that gets me more than anything. You know, because we could talk for hours about intersecting shadows. We can talk for hours about how, your space costumes in the 60s look like Halloween shit. You know, we could get into all the nitpicky stuff back and forth. But here's the other thing we were talking about before we came on the air too, the telemetry data.
Yes.
It's some of the, and not just the telemetry data, but the footage. Okay, this is some of the most precious, should be in every, you know, not every, but, you know, it should be preserved in the National Museum. It should be fully guarded. It should be in Fort Knox.
Right.
It should be, and they're not only like, oh, we lost it. They don't even, yeah. So we lost the original one. What's the big deal? Are you serious?
And they say
I feel like I'm watching My Cousin Vinny, only it's NASA. You know, like.
They
fuck,
lost
man.
But the thing is, they also say that the equipment that you would need, even if you had it to look at it, is also gone.
So we're using the 8-track argument.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually that's another one. That's a NASA video. That's not making it up, or you can find that video. They say that there's no from the Apollo missions and so forth, that data doesn't exist anymore, is official, and that they don't have the equipment to run it, even if they found it, is official. That's not making it up.
It's insane to me. It's supposed to be the biggest achievement in human history, and they're like, yeah, we taped over the wedding video.
I would hang on to that. You know, I mean, that's just me. That's a huge mistake if you lose the data.
We broke up anyway. I don't see why I need to see that bitch again. Like, it's just hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I collect Mickey Mantle rookies, but I set them all on fire last night because, I was bored. I figured they're only $50,000 a pop. Why not set it on fire?
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. It just red flag.
And it kind of goes back to the video you were talking about. I watched that the other night of the guy who's sitting there talking about the Van Allen belt and how we can't get past it safely. And I'm thinking, God, did NASA watch this? Like, you shouldn't really say that.
Which makes a lot of sense, because in the 60s, there was no one bringing any radiation belts up. They just thought, okay, as long as you can make it up there and as long as the equipment you have will just keep going straight onto the moon, you should be fine. And we found out that's not the case.
And the Van Allen belts, for people who don't know, there are 3. So you got the sun. The sun is sending out solar radiation in the form of solar winds. It's not really a wind, but that's just what they call it when the particles are moving through space. And they're being propelled away from the sun, and it comes to us as sunlight. But it's actually really dangerous radiation. And so the Earth has its like 3 belts. There's an inner, there's a middle, and then there's an outer belt. Because they call the Van Allen belts because the guy who found this data that proved that they were there was named Van Allen. And what these belts do is they deflect the solar radiation that's dangerous away from the Earth. It's sort of like having a blocker in football. It kind of goes around every side, but it doesn't come straight at you. So, but these belts absorb and they contain radiation before that's dispersed off into space, right? So,
and one important point, just to add, I'm going to shut up and let you keep going with where you were going, but just so you don't, so the viewers know, it's 1,000 miles long.
Oh,
it's not like, oh, okay, you got to go through radiation for a minute and a half, but we have all the best carbon or whatever the fuck, titanium, whatever we're using, whatever argument you want to make, okay, but it's 1,000 miles of it.
Right. And
so even if you're giving yourself like, oh, okay, our spaceships go X miles per hour, it shouldn't even be that long to get through that in space. Still, though, I mean,
NASA says that even with the boost going toward it, you would be in there for 3 hours, even with the boost, and coming back, you would be in there for almost 3 hours coming back.
Yeah, I think that's the same thing I heard, because I was trying to think about how long it would actually take to get through it. I mean, we cover ourselves up on Earth for a tiny bit of radiation and X-ray. This is potentially the most radiation in the universe.
Yes, and
big difference.
As we all know, that radiation, especially X-ray radiation, is deadly it's deadly mainly in low doses over long periods of time. But it can be deadly in high doses if the dose is high enough for a short period of time, which is why people have to wear suits when they work in nuclear facilities and stuff. Because if you're going to be around it for long periods of time, you can't be exposed to much of it. Because that's the most dangerous kind, is when you're prolonged exposure. But this isn't X-ray radiation that's in the Van Allen belt. It is charged particles, evidently, which is a little slightly different version of radiation, but but massive amounts of it, especially in the outer belt, which is obviously they would have more because it's the outer belt. That's the part that's getting hit and absorbing this stuff the most. I've noticed a lot of people say there are 2, but there are actually 3 of them. There's inner, middle, and outer. And I'll give the official story from NASA about how they managed to do this back in the Apollo days. What they say is, You have to have a window, and the Van Allen belts aren't really like a circular belt the way you think of the rings of Saturn or something. They actually kind of go inward at the poles, and that's why you get the aurora borealis at the two poles. That's radiation from space that's hitting the atmosphere, and since
it's amazing, isn't it?
And yeah, it is. And since those belts are thinner at the poles, then it can get through close enough to where you can look up and see it in the sky. So what they say is you have to skirt around the outer belt and stay in it for as short a period of time as possible. But what the conspiracy theorists say, which is an interesting point, is you say, well, how did you do that in the 1960s, but you can't do that now?
Yeah.
That's a lot of this is based around that idea. Like, how did you figure that out? So like a boss back then, but you.
My question would be like, look, it's one thing when you have, just say the government, okay, like your, quote unquote dad telling you this is how it was, okay, and we basically aren't, allowed to have the opinion of no, it's not. You know what I mean? We're basically told no, this is how it is. But just imagine if like one of your friends was like, no, this is how it is, without any of this ever having happened. And your friend ran this organization called NASA, and he gave you the same stories, but without the be all end all, you can't disagree with me. Would he ever even got, the first mission to be believable? To me, it's like, it just goes back to the red flag thing. Why are there so many? Why can't there be, if this is legit, why can't there be one thing where it's just like, oh, this is normal? You know what I mean? You have your own people saying, yeah, we can't go anymore, and yeah, there's the Van Allen radiation belts, and we should, it's amazing. It's mind-boggling to think that this started from Nazis, $53 million a day, and not just any Nazis. Nazis were the masters of propaganda. So this all leads into its origin. It's kind of like banking. Like people who don't know anything about banking think that we all live in a society and we all like pay taxes and it's all going to like some group fund that's for all of us to fix the road. It's not. Banking was made so a family could make money, not you. Not your friends, not your cousins, one family. And it spread a little bit, but it didn't spread much. So has it got much better? Our dollar's junk. You know what I mean? Cost $2 for a candy bar. $20 used to buy you an ounce of gold.
What is from the conspiracy theory side of things? What do they say NASA exists for now?
I think more than anything, it's just data. We have to know all this stuff. We have to know X, Y, Z. There's a million different things. See, that's the problem. If you just want to be like, when I say that's the problem, that's the problem from a person who doesn't believe, okay, that we're doing anything up there. There's 1,000 years of stuff you can tell people you're doing up there. There could be a whole bunch of stuff that's not on our periodic table that's up there. There could be a whole bunch of substances or gases or stuff we can convert to fuel up there. There could be something that is valuable and they know is valuable that they want to harvest. And really the only reason they want to continually go up there is because they have something that we're unaware of. What if there's lithium deposits? What if there's, lithium is almost in every computer. A lot of people think that's why he went to Afghanistan, in the 2000s. It's tough because it's the unknown. And when you have the unknown that's unverifiable, there's nothing it's like you can't let the Wizard of Oz be the judge of reality. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? He's the one portraying your reality, putting you in this reality that he's creating, but there should still be that person inside the wizard that remembers, oh wait, this is a fake, this is Fugazi. This isn't real. And again, that's not. I hate talking about this because I like it. I don't mean like that, but it's like I'd like to believe we can go. You know what I mean? I don't want to be on the side of we're not going. So I feel very conflicted. Some people who feel the need to talk about a conspiracy or supposed conspiracy, like we talk about them getting married to a side. I would actually like to be on against the side that I'm currently on. I would love to be like, look, just take the Joe Rogan approach. I'll lie to my mother for the rest of my life. Just show me that aliens are real. Show me whatever the fuck, and I'll go full Joe Rogan, and I'll just change my mind. But until then, it's like I have yet to see one concrete thing where I'm like, no, we went to space. Mm-hmm. It doesn't exist. There's a red flag behind every single one of them. The footage was so easily faked in the 60s. It doesn't even look good. The Matt Powerland supposedly he started the NASA channel. I haven't watched his videos in years. He intrigued me for a couple weeks, like 3 years ago. So I watched some of his videos. But one of the main things he brings up is he was the graphic designer for NASA for a couple of years, and he shows you all these images. And he used to wear these T-shirts. Is this real or is this fake? Is this a computer image or is it not? And 99% of the time, people can't tell until he tells them. They have no idea. They picked the wrong one.
Oh, is this the guy? I saw some interview with him last night. Is this the guy who had to Photoshop the ozone layer around the planet? That guy?
Did he? I don't know. I haven't seen that. He's a different guy. He paints a lot. A lot of times he'll like just do a 20-minute video while he's painting, and then he'll just kind of like spew out his thoughts. But he's an interesting guy. Even if you thought he was like, even if you thought everything this guy was saying wasn't true, it's kind of he's one of those people who's just not that hard to listen to. So I've listened to him a couple of times and thought, at least, you know what I mean? Because he's at least, claiming to have been, on the inside seeing this stuff or producing it. With the original moon mission, it's just, there's just so much to me that doesn't make sense. I mean, the whole thing doesn't make.
While we're
he said basically his words was the original moon mission was a theory in groupthink dynamics, and that was basically not a theory, a study in groupthink, and it's the biggest study you can get because, and think about it too, they wanted everyone home from school, they wanted Earth to see this or hear it, which a lot of people only heard it on the radio. A lot of people will say, "Why do you believe we went to the moon?" "Oh, I heard it on the radio." That's awesome. I also have a bridge I can sell you. If we're going by what the radio said, why don't we just do War of the Worlds again and just run that on repeat? If that's the level of thinking we're going on, but God, here's the main reason that I'm just so like, what the fuck about this whole thing is just what I've experienced as a human. My genuine experience in life, if I could sum it up, about other humans, you're all full of shit. You're all full of shit. You'll do anything for $1. You'll stab your own family in the back for $100,000. I don't think much of what it takes to make a human lie to your face. And then we have professional liars, which we're in the cult of that, even on a small scale. You know what I mean? That's what being a good actor is. You're a professional liar. So that's my thing. I know it can be pulled off. Do I know it has been pulled off? No, I won't say I know this for a fact, but I will say, look, is this possible? Could we pull this off if we wanted to pull off this hoax? And could we sustain it? Yeah, we could. So are we in the middle of watching that be done? Maybe. So it's a lot of money. I know I wouldn't want to, if I was NASA, I'll just tell the NASA people right now, I'd keep it going too. So no hate over here, buddy.
Well, when we were talking about the computer generated moon thing, and we showed the picture earlier of the dark side of the moon and everything, and that isn't the greatest looking picture. I mean, I must admit,
does any of it look good though? It all looks like something we could have created. Like, it's like you're NASA, and it looks like something we could have done if we had 3 hours and some spare time.
Well, I mean, I think some look better than others, but that one doesn't look super great. I wanted to show another picture though, and this kind of relates to that one. But this is an old picture because you were talking about what they had back then and what they took back then as opposed to what it is now. So, keep in mind that older picture, right? Or keep in mind the picture I showed you of the dark side of the moon. Let me show you this. Okay, I'm going to show you the picture I showed you earlier first.
55 to 32, by the way. Let's go. Nice. I just laugh every time I see it.
Okay, so there's that picture, right? That's the picture we showed you earlier. Just to remind you, there's the moon and there's the Earth. Now I want to show you an older picture from the moon of the Earth.
And see, we were shown when I was talking about the old, the picture we had in textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe we were shown this picture. See, this is actually worse, to be honest, because they're saying it looks this far away from the moon, and we were shown the picture where it looked, just as distant, if not more, halfway to the moon.
Right. Yeah, because that's straight off the moon. That someone took. I don't know if it was Neil Armstrong or who took it, but that was a picture taken of people standing on the moon, looking at the Earth and taking the picture. Apparently. So if you think about those two pictures in relationship to one another, it's kind of odd. So I don't know. I mean, there's one where the Earth is enormous and the moon is that big, and then there's one where the Earth.
I mean, I even spent like an hour once trying to be on the side of there's an explanation for this. You know what I mean? Sometimes the moon looks very big on Earth. You get just a couple of times a year where you're driving down the road and you're like, oh wow, the moon looks like it's right there and it's huge and it's much different than your typical view. I get all that, but this is a gigantic difference in that. Because the moon is something that is going to go around, and we're always going to have a different version of what we see at the moon depending on our relationship to it. But this is something to where we're supposed to be the bigger brother by 10 million miles, according to the new photo. So I just don't see any revolution, any rotation we're on, any season, any cycle where from the moon, Earth is going to look like that. If you're telling me the epic picture is real, that's my outlook.
And maybe
forget the 50 years of arguing. I'm just looking at the picture.
That's another good example of a situation where NASA doesn't really help itself, because if you show those two pictures side by side, obviously people are going to go, that looks weird. Now, I'm sure there are all kinds of explanations about perspective and stuff. This is kind of a fun thing, too. You were mentioning how the moon looks big. This is a cool thing for people to do, and it has nothing to do with conspiracy theories.
Which, by the way, I'm all open ears. If someone can, with a rational explanation, explain to me a scientific way this is possible, I'll listen. It's just that
yeah, well, I mean, again, that's something I would like if you guys watching want to do, and I would love to hear from it. But when we're talking about matters of perspective, if you're standing outside and you look over at the moon as it rises above the trees, just at the tree line, and you put up a thumb or something, and you measure the moon by your thumb, even though it looks huge, and then you wait until it gets mid-sky and it looks that big. If you actually put up your thumb, you'll see that the moon is the same size. But it's a matter of spatial perception in your mind, because the moon by the trees, compared to the trees, looks enormous. But a moon in a dark sky with nothing around it for perspective looks very small, because it's in the void of space. So I don't know if it's some explanation like that would be given. Either way, it's probably not the best example for NASA to use for the umpteenth time of saying, because not only does it look a little CGI, and I must admit the epic photo doesn't look very good. It looks a little CGI.
It costs a lot.
Yeah. Even if it's real, it costs. Yeah, how many of us would it take to? I mean, sell us 500 times to get that satellite that far away from Earth. But yeah, so stuff like that again goes back to what we were talking about admitting you lost all the data from the Apollo missions, talking about the Van Ryan belt that we can't get through. Just be careful in a world of conspiracies or conspiracy theories, what information you put out there, because you got to know that's going to catch fire.
The thing that gets me is like,
the best way to put this. Some people, have it where they could say the most irrational shit ever, and it's just publicly accepted. But I'll give you an example. I don't want to talk about 9/11, but just one thing about 9/11. Larry Silverstein, okay? If any of us have a spouse, that spouse passes prematurely, we have a life insurance policy, the fucking world ends. Okay, your life is going to be turned upside down. You might even be thrown in jail just to make sure you didn't murder your spouse. Over $100,000. Okay, so a guy who hadn't missed breakfast in 21 years in the World Trade Center, who also finagled the insurance just a month before, missed breakfast for the first time in 21 years because he had a dermatologist appointment. See, my thought is if I said something that fucking retarded, I would be shot in my head, and I should be. So, just as a precaution, if I said, look, yeah, it's the biggest attack on American soil. Yeah, I know I'm a suspect, but I was busy. I had to go get my skin looked at, even though I'm 7 years old. If Jesus was talking to me, as I'm being judged, I couldn't be like, oh, I don't understand why I'm here. I would expect someone to shoot me in the fucking head. You know what I mean? And this is where my anger comes from. Certain people in this world just have it to say the most ridiculous shit that you're not allowed to look into. Oh, you're just not allowed. You're a conspiracy theorist if you have a rational thought in your head about what I just might have done. But random Joe Schmo can't even collect $48,000 without having 8 cops at his door. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying people don't really kill their spouse for insurance. That does happen, and that you should look into it. I'm not saying don't look. That I don't want my point to be missed here. But I'm saying we're talking about something where trillions of dollars are involved, and there's no flag, but there's a huge flag on Billy because Darcy got in a car wreck supposedly. It doesn't. That makes me think we're all just slaves, to be honest with you. We're all just 100%, whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're Asian, we're all just someone else's slave. We just don't see it that way. When someone can tell you something and you know it to be false and you can't say anything about it, nor could you do anything about it without, with threat of your life being taken from you, what is that? So I'm not saying it's a terrible version of slavery we have in America, but I'm saying it's a version. When you can't challenge something, I mean, what the fuck? That's the problem. Is there's been too many things that aren't related to the moon since the moon landing to make you think, oh, look, this whole thing's a script, the whole thing, all of it. And then it gives people who have started this flat Earth movement a lot of traction by putting out all these photos that don't make any sense. That contradict each other. You can't contradict yourself. If anything, if one thing you don't do in life, that's who did that? Actually, I don't want to bring it up. I'll tell you after we go off air because I don't think a lot of people don't like that. You know what I mean? Let's not get into what I was just about to say at all. So what's up, Khabib? We'll talk about it later. But still, it's just that's what angers me. One person has complete permission to say bullshit, unchallenged. Another person just thrown under the bus. So over something way less meaningful. So that's from the moon to the Gulf of Tonkin to 9/11 to who knows what happened in Vegas? I don't know. I was here and I don't fucking know. There's just too much. There's too much. And we live in a world of a 24-hour news cycle now. They tell us what to think. When you have 3 corporations putting out all the news, and think about the Kavanaugh thing, right? How it was just every channel, everyone's arguing, everyone's posting stuff on Facebook. And think about how quick that happened. What's the actual percentage of Americans who ever heard the name John Kavanaugh before, a couple months ago?
Very few.
what, the 0.3 maybe?
If I would say if that. Yeah.
Yet that's the power of the news. To make everyone chatter. You go outside, you hear people talk about it. I'm arguing with my family over this shit, and I don't even know the guy. But that's just another example of they can make us focus on anything they want. There's and then we don't have an attention span anymore. There's no attention span because stuff only lasts for well, that's the thing. They make our attention span be what they want it to be. If they want to cover the same plane story for 58 days, they will. If they want to talk about the most heinous thing you've ever heard about for 5 seconds and sweep it under the rug, they also will. And we have no control over that. The only control we have is, we have the ability on the internet to talk about other stuff. We can at least say, look, this is my opinion. With the moon stuff, I'm being at least respectful because I'm in the gray area.
Yeah.
Could I be convinced we actually went? In the right setting. But it would take a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It sure feels like a fraud, even if it isn't. It sure feels like one.
Well, I think it would take a lot, but before we go into the, because we could do a whole show on the media and actually a number of those things that you mentioned, but our time here is getting short for this show. So we'll have to put those on our list for future shows because, obviously, some of that more topical stuff is something we could talk about forever.
That's the problem with all this stuff is I think they just want us talking forever while they just keep on doing what they're doing.
And I guess we're gonna do that. We'll do that for them right here on this show on YouTube. We'll do our part, Ryan, in that. But anyway, this was a pretty good discussion, and I hope you guys liked it. I hope we stayed fairly on point. But like I said, there's so much we could go into here that we could do more on the space program, and we probably will. I don't know. What do you think, man?
I think if you're watching NASA, just like take me up there. Like, I'll vouch for you. I'll come back. I'll be like, look, yeah, we really go up there.
No, shit. You have no idea how much I would love to see that, Ryan. Just like you float through the picture.
I'm lying my ass off. I want to say right on the ground where it's safe, bro. I'll find a line. I don't want to be in the air any more longer than I have to. I don't even want to be in a plane, let alone space. So, well, but you could at least show me, maybe something I haven't seen before. The whole firmament argument, is something like, why were we nuking the atmosphere? That's one thing I actually wanted to talk about on this episode instead of going into the moon stuff. Was what was the operation called? Fishbowl. Operation Fishbowl, where we're nuking the sky and stuff. Like, that's interesting to me. Well, what are we nuking?
We can't get on that yet.
Obviously, I'm about to say that's part of it, but obviously that lends so much credence, But between the fishbowl thing, between the not wanting to show us a genuine picture of the Earth, like there's a lot of reason to get people, to be conspiracy minded, even if they aren't.
Yes. Well, yeah. Wes talking about this is interesting. I think like what we've said before on earlier shows, we have differing opinions on a lot of it. I think you and I can agree on certain things as being really weird and kind of funky looking and red flaggy. But I think that's what's interesting about these shows that you and I do is we get to at least talk about both sides of it.
I like the tangible stuff you can actually see. Touch, whatever, stuff that has substance behind it, where there really isn't a lot of argument. When you, a lot of people try to talk conspiracy stuff, and they'll be like, yeah, well, in the '60s, we had this going on with whatever country, and then we had this embargo over here. Like people go like into just these loops, where they're nonsensical. They don't really. I just like taking a fact that is undisputable and being like, look, this doesn't fit in, to everything else I'm being told, if it is indeed a fact. And certain things are simple fact. It's like it's a picture. You know what I mean? A picture is what it is. It's not something to be debated or up and down or something to try and get over someone else's opinion on. It's just, it is what it is. And I like looking at stuff like that because we could all, we could accuse the government of doing everything if, without any substance.
And a lot of people do.
A lot of people are just fucking nuts.
Well, anyway, on that note, let's end this show, and then we'll go into this in further detail on future shows.
I'm gonna get ready to watch Chuck Liddell here in a few hours. Good luck, Chuck. I hope you don't. God, if he I don't even want to think about the day that Chuck Liddell loses to Tito Ortiz. I don't want to see it at all.
Well, I'll have to talk to you. We'll definitely be talking about that probably tomorrow, but not on the show. For you guys watching at home, I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank Ryan yet again for being on here talking about conspiracies with me. I appreciate it, buddy.
No problem, bud.
And next time I will see you guys. We'll be doing an interview, and I'll let you know this coming week what that's going to be. So until next week, take care of yourselves.